Welcome back to another edition of the Optimized Weekly Market Recap. I'm David Ferriera, Portfolio Manager with Optimized Wealth Management. And as always for today's recap, we'll take a look at last week's activity in the markets, as well as what we're watching for in the week ahead. It was another exciting week in the markets as all three major U.S. stock indices gained more than 1% on the week. The rally was broad-based, led by a 1.5% advance for the S&P 500, which is now within 1% of a record high close. The Nasdaq added 1.4% on the week, the Dow finished up 1.3%, and the TSX up 1%, making it the third straight week of gains for Canada's equity index. Zooming in on sector performance, all S&P 500 sectors were higher on the week with the exception of energy. Real estate and consumer discretionary notched the largest gains, while technology and energy lagged by the most. Looking at the events from this past week, on Friday, Fed Chair Jerome Powell, in a speech at the much-anticipated Jackson Hole Symposium, signaled that the U.S. central bank was getting closer to cutting interest rates, to which stocks rallied on the news. Also on Thursday, U.S. weekly jobless claims rose 4,000 to a seasonally adjusted 232,000 for the week ended August 17th, slightly more than the 230,000 claims expected by economists. The data shows a gradual cooling of the labor market, which further strengthened the case for a Fed rate cut in September. In Canada, consumer inflation data for July, released on Tuesday, showed a 2.5% year-over-year increase, its lowest reading since early 2021. This was more good news for Canadian investors and consumers hoping for another Bank of Canada rate cut this year. For the week ahead, the highlight this week will be the U.S. Personal Consumption Expenditures, or PCE, price index, which will be released on Friday. This is considered the U.S. Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge, which will likely move the markets at the end of the week. And on Thursday, we'll get a look at U.S. economic growth with the release of GDP data for the second quarter of this year. And this could prove an indication on how successful the Federal Reserve has been in guiding the economy to a soft landing. In Canada, Q2 economic growth will also be in focus this week with the release of GDP data on Friday. The data could also influence the BOC's interest rate decision in early September. And looking at corporate earnings calendar, all eyes will be on NVIDIA's results after the close on Wednesday, which could set the tone for big tech trading for the rest of the week. Other notable names reporting include some of Canada's largest banks, such as BMO, Scotia, and RBC. And that's all for this week's edition of the Weekly Market Recap. As always, thank you for watching and see you soon.